There's something that quietly shapes the rhythm of our days, something most people overlook. Not because it's hidden, but because it's always there, just like the air we breathe. And as we grow older, we begin to notice it more and more clearly. It's not what life throws our way that shapes how we feel. It's not the lines on our faces or the silence that fills the rooms of our homes. What really shapes our days more than anything else is what we choose to pay attention to. Moment by moment, thought by thought, our focus becomes the silent author of our reality. Some people wake up in the morning and the first thing they notice is their aching knees, the heaviness of being alone, or the long list of tasks they didn't finish. Others wake up and feel the sunlight warming the curtain, the peaceful stillness that doesn't need to be explained, or the simple gift of one more day. It's the same morning, the same world, but the experience is completely different, not because the world changed, but because their focus changed. There was a woman I used to know, well into her 70s, who cared for her garden every day, as if it were something sacred. She never worried about the weeds, and never complained when the flowers began to fade. She simply watered the ones that were still blooming, the ones still trying to grow, even in tired, dry soil. I once asked her why she didn't remove the dead leaves, and she smiled, with a wisdom that only age can bring. Because I don't spend my energy on what I don't want to grow, she said, not even in my thoughts. Her words stuck with me, because the truth is, our minds are no different from her garden. Every thought we feed, every memory we go back to, every little worry or joy we give time to, they all begin to grow, take root, and spread. Most people don't even notice it, but they spend years watering pain, bitterness, disappointment, until that's all they can see. And then they wonder, why does peace feel so far away? We become what we give our attention to. That's not just some poetic idea. It's a quiet rule of life. Focus isn't something passive, it's something we create. The Dhammapada says, what you dwell upon, you become. And so, how many of us spend our days thinking about our fears, our losses, and what could go wrong, instead of noticing the quiet little miracles that are still here? This isn't about pretending life is always beautiful. It's a soft reminder that even in the middle of the mess, we still get to choose where we let our attention rest. And that small, quiet choice, hardly seen by the outside world, changes everything. Because what you feed grows, and what you ignore slowly fades away. The mind, just like a garden, will give back whatever you take care of the most. So the real question isn't, what's missing in your life? The real question is, what are you still watering? In today's video, we'll explore 10 powerful parts inspired by Buddhist wisdom, each one offering a gentle, thoughtful lesson on peace, understanding, aging, and attention. Let us begin with that part 1. There's a quiet truth that sneaks up on us. As the years pass by, our minds don't really grow old, they grow familiar. Familiar with what we repeat. Familiar with the same old stories we whisper to ourselves, even when no one else hears them. And just like a garden answers to the gardener's touch, our inner world responds to the thoughts we care for. The question isn't, are our minds growing? The real question is, what are they growing? Imagine for a moment an old backyard garden behind a house. Maybe not perfect, but filled with love. Some spots are blooming with roses and basil and soft purple lavender. Others have been left alone, overrun with thorns, stubborn weeds, and dry, lifeless earth. Now picture the gardener, maybe someone like you, walking around each morning, with a watering can in hand. Where they choose to stop and pour their attention, that's what will grow. And it's the same with our minds. Many of us are unknowingly watering weeds. We think again and again about conversations that hurt us. We picture scary futures in our heads. We carry old regrets like heavy stones in our pockets. We feed these thoughts, not because we want to, but because we're used to them. Because strange as it sounds, pain can feel like control. If we think about it enough, maybe we can change the past. If we replay that betrayal one more time, maybe this time we'll see it coming. But of course, we never do. Buddhism gently reminds us over and over. The mind is everything. What you think, you become. Dhammapada. When you feed worry, it grows deeper. When you feed resentment, it tightens its hold. But when you slowly, kindly begin to feed peace, gratitude, compassion, they begin to grow again, even in soil hardened by years of storms. I remember once visiting a monk in Chiang Mai, Thailand. He had a tiny courtyard filled with pots of plants. Some pots had nothing but stems. Others were green, lush, and bursting with life. He pointed to one sad pot and said, "That used to be my anger. I stopped watering it." Then he pointed to a bright orchid and smiled. "This is my patience. I take care of it every day." So simple and yet so powerful. In the West, we're often told to fix our thoughts, repair them, fight them, reframe them. But Buddhism doesn't treat the mind like a broken machine. It teaches us to look at it gently and care for it like a living garden. Not with force, but with kindness. Not with blame, but with understanding. So we begin by noticing what thoughts show up most often in your mornings. What memories return when you're sitting alone in silence? Do they lift you up or weigh you down? Are they the fruit of something you want to grow? Or are they the weeds of a long-gone season? Here's the good news. It's never too late to shift your focus. Even a garden left wild for many years can bloom again. All it takes is intention, a little water in the right place, a little light. So tomorrow morning, when your thoughts begin to rise, ask yourself, gently, without judgment, what am I watering today? And remember, even if the weeds are thick, even if you've been feeding them for decades, one tiny shift in attention can start to bring color back to places inside you that you thought were lost. It's a strange thing, isn't it? How we can spend a whole life living inside our minds, and yet we rarely stop to ask, who is talking in there? Or what have we been listening to all these years? The human mind is like a non-stop narrator, whispering judgments, memories, fears, and predictions. And for many of us, especially as we grow older, those voices have become so familiar, so repeated, that we no longer see them as just thoughts. We start to believe that's who we are. But here's the truth that Buddhist wisdom quietly offers. You are not your thoughts. You are not your worst moment. You are not your fear. You are not that voice whispering, "It's too late." You are, in each moment, what you choose to feed. And that, dear one, is something you can still change, no matter your age. In the Buddha's teachings, there's a powerful image called the two arrows. The first arrow is life's pain, aging, illness, loss, disappointment. That's unavoidable. But the second arrow is the one we fire into ourselves. It's the story we keep repeating, the harsh words we say to ourselves again and again. Sometimes for decades, we say, "I should have done more. I wasted too much time. No one really sees me anymore." And with each repeat, we feed that suffering like firewood on a flame. But here's the beautiful part. You don't have to keep feeding it. A friend of mine, an old widower in his early 80s, once told me something over tea. After his wife passed away, every morning he woke up with the same aching thought. "I'm alone." That thought played on repeat every day. And slowly, it colored his whole world. He stopped tending his garden. He stopped taking walks. Even food lost its taste. But then one morning, something changed. He looked out the window and saw a small bird land gently on the empty chair across from him. It wasn't planned, it wasn't dramatic. But in that quiet moment, something shifted. Maybe I'm not alone, he thought. Maybe I've just been listening to the same thought for too long. And that day, instead of letting the thought of absence control him, he tried a new one. "Today, I'll notice what's still here." That tiny choice to feed a new thought changed everything. Buddhist practice doesn't ask us to fight the mind. It asks us to watch it gently, with compassion, to observe it without grabbing on. Thoughts will come and go like drifting clouds. But you are the sky. And the sky doesn't panic when a storm rolls through. It just lets it pass, knowing the blue will return again. And just like the gardener who waters the blooming flower instead of the dead leaf, we too can choose what thoughts we give our attention to. If you always focus on what's wrong with you, then that's all you'll feel. But if you begin, even in a quiet way, to notice your strength, your gentleness, your silent courage through all these years, you'll start to see another version of yourself. One that's always been there, just waiting behind the noise. The mind is loyal, maybe too loyal. It keeps bringing you the thoughts you've practiced most. But if you change the story, the whole scene begins to change too. So next time that familiar voice rises up, telling you you're too old to begin again, that your best days are behind you, just take a breath and ask yourself, is this a thought worth feeding? Because that version of you, the tired, doubting, regretful one, isn't the truth. It's just the voice you've handed the microphone to for too long. And now, gently, it's time to pass that microphone to someone new, someone wiser, someone softer, someone who sees all of you, not just the broken parts. There's a quiet kind of suffering that sneaks in during the later chapters of life. Not loud, not dramatic, but steady, like a slow breeze that slowly wears down even a mountain. It's the pain that comes from trying to control things. Things that were never really ours to control in the first place. The past, other people's choices, time itself, and still many of us, without even realizing it, spend years holding on tight to the idea that if we just think harder, worry longer, or replay the story one more time, maybe, just maybe we can change what can't be changed. But the truth is, the more we try to hold on to control, the more peace slips through our fingers. Buddhism gives us a powerful truth. Real peace doesn't come from fixing everything out there. It begins when we loosen our grip in here, within ourselves. In the Majjhima Nikaya 131, the Buddha says, Do not chase the past or long for the future. What is past is left behind. The future is as yet unreached. Whatever quality is present, clearly see it right there. These words, they're not just beautiful teachings. They're healing medicine for the tired, restless mind. There's a man named Thomas the First, often remember, a retired schoolteacher, plus 2 wives, and rarely hears from one of his children. He once told me something so simple, yet so deep. He said the hardest part of getting old is when the world stops needing your opinions or your schedule. He used to lie awake at night, replaying old arguments he never won, imagining how he could have changed his marriage, how he could have been a better father, how he could have stopped certain things from happening. He said, "It felt like I was playing chess with ghosts. I never won, and I never slept." Then one day, he decided to stop playing that game, not by changing the past, but by changing what he gave his attention to. He began to sit quietly each morning, not to ask for different outcomes, but simply to listen. He told me, "I finally learned I couldn't stop the storm, but I could sit under a tree and listen to the rain." This is the shift, not from pain to perfection, but from resistance to awareness, not from fixing everything, but gently turning your focus toward what you can still touch. Because if you give all your attention to what's outside your control, what they said, what they never apologized for, what didn't happen, then you become trapped in a world you can't change. But when you turn your attention inward, to what you can influence, your breath, your words, your actions, your kindness, you don't just reclaim control. You reclaim something much greater. You reclaim freedom. This isn't easy, especially in a world that asks us to judge ourselves by what we achieve or how others respond. But Buddhism asks us to look another way. It asks softly, can you observe without trying to steer things? Can you love deeply without clutching on? Because here's the paradox. When we free ourselves from needing to steer, we find what has always been ours. The freedom to choose what we focus on. And when we choose our focus, our energy moves there too. That's not just feel-good advice. That's wisdom that changes how we live, moment to moment. Letting go isn't giving up. It means seeing clearly. It means stopping the waste of pouring your precious attention where it won't grow. It means finally shifting toward the part of the garden that's still blossoming, still open, still alive with possibility. So next time your thoughts reach for the unfixable, try this instead. Pause, breathe, and gently refocus on what's within your reach. This breath, this small moment, this sacred now. And maybe, just maybe, by releasing control, you'll discover something far more lasting. If the mind were a room, most of us would find it cluttered, not from lacking intelligence or awareness, but because over time we've collected so many thoughts without asking if they still belong. They piled up like keepsakes from a life we didn't fully design. And now in these quieter years, when the world eases its rush just enough to hear us think, we're alone with all that noise, and yet there's something quietly hopeful about that too. Because now we have the time, the wisdom, and the presence to tidy the room. Not all at once, definitely not perfectly, but with purpose. That's real refocusing. It isn't a grand display or a spiritual leap. It's a gentle, daily decision to steer our attention away from fear, resentment, and the unchangeable, and toward what gives light, meaning, and quiet strength. In Buddhist tradition, there's a lovely metaphor, often shared with monks in training. It goes like this. A young student came to the Buddha, frustrated that his mind wandered during meditation. Every time I try to concentrate, he said, thoughts pull me away, the Buddha replied. Just as a cowherd uses a stick to gently guide stray cows back, you must guide your mind, patiently, persistently, until it learns the way home. That's the heart of practice. Not stuffing thoughts down, not chasing perfection, but returning. And in our everyday, that return begins with tiny acts of noticing. Imagine you're at your kitchen window, the sun rising, coffee warm in your hand, a thought drifts in. I'm all alone. But instead of accepting it as truth, you pause, you ask yourself, is this thought serving me today? Maybe it's familiar, maybe it's old, but is it true? Is it helpful? Or just a weed you've watered for too long? Now picture making a new choice. You breathe in, you look again. You notice the light dancing on the dishes, birds flitting across the yard, steam spiraling from your mug like a soft ribbon. Then you hold a different thought. I'm still here, and this moment is full of life. It might feel small, almost silly, but it's everything, because that tiny shift in focus, however quiet, rewires your nervous system, softens the body, opens the heart. And as you repeat this each day, your mental camera starts to point elsewhere. You begin to notice what's working. You savor simple joys. You stop giving energy to inner critics or ancient shadows that no longer deserve it. This is how we reclaim peace, not by forcing positivity, but by choosing breath by breath where our mind rests. And yes, there will be days when you forget. When old thoughts surge in like a tide trying to pull you under, that's okay. Just come back as many times as needed, because each return is a victory. Each moment of noticing is a small awakening. One elder woman I once knew kept a tiny note on her mirror that read, "Today I choose peace." She told me that on days when her joints ached or when grief whispered through her bones, she stood in front of the mirror, said it aloud, and began again. Some days she believed it, some days she didn't, but over time, she said, peace came anyway. So start where you are. Start with one thought, one breath, one gentle redirection, and let your practice be this: to keep coming home to the parts of yourself that are still alive, still hopeful, still capable of joy. There comes a time, often quiet, sometimes sudden, when we look back and realize how much we've been carrying, not only the years, memories, or bittersweet milestones, but something deeper, regrets hardened into self-blame, wounds that never truly healed, words we wish we'd said, words we wish we hadn't. And if we're not careful, these invisible burdens shape how we move in the world, not with openness, but with hesitation, not with peace, but with a soft ache in our hearts. But here's something most people never hear before it's too late. You are allowed to put it down, not because everything is resolved, not because you've untangled every knot of your story, but because you deserve to walk through your remaining years lighter, freer, more present for what remains to unfold. There's a strong teaching in Buddhism, one echoed across its many traditions. Let go or be dragged. Simple but piercing, because an untrained mind will cling. It clings to identity, to pain, to how things should have been. And as we get older, that clinging becomes habitual. It becomes part of how we define ourselves. I am the one who was betrayed. I am the one who lost too much. I am the one who never quite healed. But you are not what hurt you. You are not what others failed to see in you. You are what remains after the storm, the part that endured, the part still seeking beauty. Even with a tired heart. I once sat beside an elderly woman named Miriam, a retired nurse with gentle eyes and a voice trembling with age. She told me about her daughter, estranged for nearly 20 years. The wound was deep even after all that time. Every holiday, she'd wait by the phone. Every birthday, every Mother's Day, she pictured what her daughter looked like now. What she'd say if she had the chance. And each time, silence came, like winter through a broken window. I asked her what changed. She smiled faintly. One day, she realized she'd kept her daughter's absence more alive than her presence ever was. And it was slowly killing her. That winter, she wrote a letter, not to send, but to free herself. She told her daughter everything she never dared say, then folded the letter, lit a small candle, and let the letter burn in a bowl of water. I didn't do it to forget, she said. I did it to remember who I am without the weight. That is aging with grace, not pretending nothing hurt, but refusing to be held hostage by the hurt. In Buddhist practice, they often speak of non-attachment. People misunderstand it, thinking it means indifference or coldness. But truly, non-attachment is the deepest form of love. It says, I see this, I feel this, but I won't be defined by this. I will honor it, learn from it, and then release it. So many of us spend the autumn of our lives dragging behind the heavy summer. Old lovers, broken friendships, mistakes, chances missed. But what if we simply laid them down? Not erased them, not denied them, but gently set them beside the path as an offering, and walked forward lighter? Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering differently. It means making peace with the fact that the past will never change. And yet, the future is still ours to shape, and shaping it starts with what we choose to carry forward. So if you're tired, let yourself be tired. If you're grieving, let yourself grieve. But when the moment comes, and it always does, choose, even softly, to open your hands, to give your pain the gift of space. And in that space, let something softly bloom. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find that what feels like the end is actually the beginning of a much gentler way of being. Learning to see what's still here. There's a curious thing that happens as we grow older. Our eyes may dim, but our vision grows deeper. And yet, even with that deeper vision, it's easy to miss what's right in front of us. Not because we can't see it, but because our mind has been trained to look for what's wrong, what's missing, what didn't happen. We get used to hunting for signs of failure, loss, or fading purpose, that we miss the quiet beauty of what remains, still breathing, still blooming. In Buddhist mindfulness practice, there's a principle called vipassana. It means clear seeing, not with the eyes, but with awareness, with presence, with the kind of attention that doesn't rush past the ordinary, but honors it. And here's the humbling truth. The gentle art of noticing is one of the most powerful healing practices we can learn. There's a Zen story about a monk who, after decades of training, was asked by his student, "What is the essence of enlightenment?" The monk smiled and said, "When I eat, When I sleep, I sleep. At first the student was puzzled. Isn't that what everyone does? But then he began to understand. The monk wasn't distracted while eating, wasn't replaying the past on forest walks, wasn't rehashing old talks over a cup of tea. He was fully there. And in that simple presence, peace found room to enter. I remember sitting with a woman named Carol, a grandmother of 5, who had moved into assisted living after losing some mobility. She told me, with tears in her eyes, that she'd started feeling invisible. After a lifetime of being needed by children, spouse, co-workers, now no one seemed to need her, she said. It's like I'm watching my life from the outside, like a guest. But then a shift. One morning she started writing in a small notebook, not accomplishments or to-dos, but simple things she noticed each day. One day the way sunlight hit the windowsill, another day the laughter of a nurse in the hallway, another day the taste of her tea, just right with a splash of milk. I started seeing my life again, she said, not the big stuff, but the small things that made her feel alive. That's the power of attention. What we notice grows. And the more we seek signs of life, the more life reveals itself. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that suffering often comes from resisting what is. We yearn for what was, we fear what might come next. But what if, instead, we simply noticed what is? Not pretending the hard stuff isn't there, but refusing to let it be all we see. It means looking again, finding something soft under the harshness. It means noticing a stranger's smile instead of replaying yesterday's pain. It means catching yourself in a spiral of worry and gently saying, there you are, mind, but I choose to see the leaves dancing outside. This is the gentle art of reclaiming attention, not by force, but by grace. So when the day feels dull, lonely, or small, return to the present with the eyes of a beginner. Ask yourself, what have I been overlooking? You might be surprised. Because the world is still whispering to you, still offering quiet beauty, still placing moments of wonder at your feet. You only need to notice. There's a certain kind of wisdom that doesn't come from books or teachings or years. It comes from riding out storms more than once. It's the wisdom of knowing life won't always be calm, but we can be. The winds may howl outside our door, but our inner flame doesn't have to waver. And yet, even as we age, many of us struggle to stay grounded when emotions rise like waves. And the world around us keeps spinning. One of the Buddha's most powerful insights is this: you will not be punished for your anger, but by your anger. This isn't about guilt or shame. It's about seeing that suffering often comes not from what happens, but from how we respond to it. Reactivity is a habit, a reflex to snap when we're hurt, to shut down when we feel unseen, to raise our voice when we feel small. But response, that's something else. It's presence, it's clarity, it's the space between the match and the flame. I once met an elderly man named Samuel, a Vietnam veteran with silver in his beard, and a past as deep as the scars on his arms. He told me that for most of his life, anger was his go-to language. It felt protective. It made him feel strong, untouchable. But as he got older, he noticed something unsettling. Not that he was angry at someone in particular. He was just tired, and beneath that armor, there was only loneliness. He began practicing breath work, not fancy or showy, but simple. Each morning, he sat quietly, hand on his chest, breathing in through his nose, out through his mouth, and with each breath, he learned to pause. That pause became his sacred space, his still place in the storm. It didn't silence the memories, he told me, but it did make them quieter. And it gave him a chance to choose differently. That is what response does. It gives us a choice, and with choice comes freedom. In Buddhism, this freedom has a name: mindfulness. The ability to witness a thought, a feeling, or even a surge of emotion without becoming it. It means watching a thought or emotion rise without letting it take over you. Like watching a storm from the safety of your porch, you don't deny the thunder. It's like watching a heavy storm from your porch, you don't deny the thunder. You don't pretend the rain isn't falling, you simply stay still enough not to be swept away. You don't act like the rain isn't pouring, you just stay calm so the storm doesn't pull you in. This becomes even more essential in our later years because by now we've lost things. This becomes even more important as we grow older, because by now we've faced many losses. We've been hurt, we've buried people, we've made mistakes, and the emotional landscape inside us. We've been through pain, said goodbye to loved ones, made regrets, and inside, we hold it all. Is no longer simple, but we can still be at peace not by silencing the storm. It's not simple anymore, but peace is still possible, not by stopping the storm, but by learning to hold our ground within it when someone speaks harshly, but by standing steady inside it. When someone speaks unkindly, we can pause and remember that their words are not a reflection of our worth. We can pause and remember their words don't define who we are. When fear rises in the middle of the night, we can sit with it like a guest and ask it what it's come to teach us. When fear shows up at night, we can sit with it like a visitor and gently ask, "What are you here to teach me?" When the weight of the world feels too much, we can step back, not out of weakness. When everything feels too heavy, we can step away, not because we're weak, but from wisdom. The Dalai Lama once said, "Do not let the behavior of others, but because wisdom says so." The Dalai Lama once said, "Don't let the way others act destroy your inner peace," and truly that kind of peace doesn't come from retreating from life. Take away your peace inside. And truly, real peace doesn't come from running away from life. It comes from facing life with a new kind of strength, a softness that isn't weakness. It comes from meeting life with new strength, a gentle kind, not a weak one. A silence that isn't emptiness, a stillness that isn't avoidance. A silence that doesn't mean empty, a stillness that doesn't mean hiding, but awareness. So when the next storm comes, and it will remember this, it's awareness. So when the next storm arrives, and it will, hold this close. You are not the storm, you are the mountain, you are the steady ground beneath it all. You are not the storm, you are the mountain, the solid ground under everything. And in that stillness you will find not just peace, but the power to respond with compassion. And in that quiet place, you'll find more than peace. You'll find the power to respond with kindness, with patience, and with the kind of dignity that no one can take away. With calm and with dignity, the kind no one else can take from you. As we get older, the world starts to whisper things to us. Sometimes it's loud, sometimes it's quiet, but it tells us what we didn't earn, what we've lost, and what's slipping away: money, time, chances. There's a subtle pressure that creeps in, even in later life, suggesting that our value is measured by what we have. There's a quiet pressure that sneaks in even in old age, It tells us our worth is based on what we own. How much remains in the bank, how many years stretch ahead of us, and yet when we sit quietly with ourselves, how much is left in the bank? How many years do we have left? But when we sit with ourselves in silence, beneath all that noise something ancient and undeniable rises. We are more than what we possess. Underneath all that noise, something deep and timeless speaks up. We are more than our stuff. We always have been. Buddhism reminds us of this with remarkable simplicity. We've always been more. Buddhism teaches this truth in such a simple, clear way. The Buddha once said health is the greatest gift, contentment the greatest wealth. The Buddha once said, health is the best gift, and being content is the real kind of wealth. Faithfulness, the best relationship. What a beautiful redefinition. No talk of gold or time left on earth. Being loyal, that's the best relationship. What a beautiful way to redefine what matters. No mention of gold or how many days we have left. Only presence, gratitude, and the treasures we hold within. It's not to say that money or time don't matter. Only being present, feeling thankful, and valuing what's inside us. That doesn't mean money and time don't matter. Of course they do. A secure home, a nourishing meal, the freedom to care for our health. Of course they do. A safe home, warm meals, the freedom to take care of our health. These are real needs. These are real tangible needs, but once those needs are met, we must ask ourselves, what are we chasing? Once those are met, we have to ask, what are we still chasing? And what is it costing us to keep running? There's a man I once knew, Howard. And what is the price of that endless chase? I once knew a man named Howard, a retired engineer who had built a modest but comfortable life. He was careful with his finances. He was a retired engineer. He lived simply but comfortably. He was smart with his money, proud of his discipline, but after retirement he fell into a spiral of fear. He was proud of being disciplined, but after retiring, he started falling into a fear spiral. Always worried about running out not just of money but of relevance. He worried constantly, not just about money, but about being useful, being needed, of usefulness, of time. He feared running out of purpose and time. He stopped traveling, he stopped giving. He stopped traveling. He stopped being generous. He stopped enjoying the very life he had worked so hard to secure. I was saving for the future. He stopped enjoying the life he had worked so hard to build. I was saving for the future, he said. He told me, but I forgot I was already in it. This is the poverty that often goes unnoticed. But I forgot I was already in it. That's a kind of poverty we don't often see. The poverty of missing the moment. Not a poverty of means, but a poverty of presence in Buddhist thought. Not lacking money, but lacking presence. In Buddhism, one of the greatest forms of wealth is contentment, not settling, not giving up. One of the richest things we can have is contentment, not giving up, but being okay with enough. But learning to appreciate enoughness, and that's a word we forget in our culture. It means learning to love what's enough. We forget that word in today's world. Enough we're taught to push, to accumulate, to maximize every moment. We're taught to push harder, gather more, use every second to the fullest. But in the second half of life, wisdom whispers something else entirely. But as we get older, wisdom gently says something different. Slow down, look around, breathe, it is already enough. Slow down. Look around. Take a breath. It's already enough. There is richness in a cup of tea taken slowly in the morning sun. There is wealth in a conversation. There's richness in a quiet morning tea. There's wealth in a good talk. Where someone finally listens to your whole story, there is abundance in a body that still moves. Where someone really listens to your full story, there's abundance in a body that still moves. Still holds you even if more gently now, and then there is time once seen as a race. Still supports you even if more gently than before. And there's time, once seen as a race, begins to soften into something else, a sacred offering. We begin to see that time is not only what passes, but now it feels softer, like a quiet gift. We start to see that time isn't just what goes by. It is also what opens with fewer external demands. There's a quiet liberation. It's also what opens up. With fewer outside demands, something inside us feels free. The freedom to tend to your soul, to explore forgotten joys, to give your attention to things that matter. We get the freedom to care for our spirit, rediscover old joys, and pay attention to what truly matters. Not because they produce something, but because they nourish something within. Not because they make something, but because they feed something deep inside us. There's a Zen proverb that says, when you realize nothing is lacking, the whole world belongs to you. There's a Zen saying, when you realize nothing is missing, the whole world is yours. What a radical, beautiful invitation to stop measuring our lives by the calendar. What a bold, beautiful invitation. Stop measuring your life by days and deadlines, or the ledger, and instead to begin measuring by presence, peace, and connection. Or money charts. Start measuring it by presence, peace, and connection. If you find yourself worrying about the money you didn't make, or the time you think you've lost, pause, breathe. So if you catch yourself worrying about the money you didn't earn, or time you think you wasted, stop. Breathe. Ask yourself, what is already here that I've overlooked? What richness lives in your hands? Ask, what's already around me that I've been ignoring? What kind of richness is right here in my hands? Your heart, your stories, your kindness, these are the currencies of the soul. In your heart? In your stories? In your kindness? These are the true treasures of the soul. And the beautiful truth is you never run out of them. In fact, the more you give them away. And here's the lovely truth, these don't run out. In fact, the more you give them, the multiply. To live richly is not to have more, but to need less and love more. They grow. To live richly doesn't mean having more. It means needing less and loving more. We often believe that creativity is only for young people, for those full of energy, bold ideas, and endless drive. But that's just one part of the truth. Buddhism shows us that true creativity comes not from age, but from presence. It's about being so open, so still that life flows through you and becomes art. It's about being deeply open, so calm that life starts moving through you and becomes art. And this kind of creativity ripens with time like a fruit, it deepens with reflection. This kind of creativity doesn't fade, it grows with age, like fruit ripening in the sun. It deepens as you reflect and feel more. I once met a woman named Lillian. She was 82 when she started painting. I once met a woman named Lillian. She picked up a paintbrush for the first time at 82. Not because she wanted to sell her work or make a name for herself. She didn't do it for fame or to sell her work. But because one morning she saw the light hit her kitchen wall, just so, and it moved her. She did it because one quiet morning, the sunlight touched her kitchen wall just right, and it touched her heart. She told me, "I think I've been carrying colors inside me for decades, I just didn't know how to let them out." She said, "I think I've been holding these colors in my heart for years. I just never knew how to let them out." This is the beauty of late life creativity. It's not about proving, it's about revealing. This is the magic of being creative later in life. It's not about proving anything. It's about uncovering what's already within you, revealing what has been quietly growing inside you for a lifetime in Buddhism, revealing what's been slowly blooming inside you for a lifetime. In Buddhism, expression is not about performance, it's about authenticity. Creative expression isn't a show, it's about being real. A way to give form to what is formless, to let the soul speak in color or clay or dance or word. It's a way to give shape to what we feel inside, to let the soul speak through colors or clay or movement or words. There's a Zen concept called beginner's mind. It's the idea that the most open. There's a Zen idea called beginner's mind. It means being curious, like a child, open to learning and surprise. The most curious, the most alive mind is the one that doesn't pretend to know. The mind that's most alive is the one that doesn't act like it knows everything, but is willing to explore. And who better to embody that than someone who has lived long enough, but is ready to explore? And who better to hold that kind of wisdom than someone who's lived a long, rich life? To know that mastery is not the goal, that curiosity is enough. Someone who knows now, you don't need to master anything. Curiosity alone is enough. When you create not to impress but to express, something shifts. When you create not to impress but to express, something inside you changes. It becomes a form of meditation, a way to return to the moment fully. It turns into meditation, a way to come back fully into this one moment. Noticing the curve of a petal, the breath between notes, the feel of words forming. You begin noticing the curve of a flower petal, the pause between sounds, the feeling of words shaping in your mouth. And in this noticing, you are alive, fully awake, fully human. And in this quiet noticing, you become alive, completely awake, fully human. I once saw a man in his 90s write poetry with trembling hands. Each word was a prayer. I once saw a man in his 90s writing poems with shaky hands. Every single word was like a quiet prayer. Not perfect, not polished, but deeply true. When asked why he wrote, he said, "Not perfect, not polished, but deeply honest." When someone asked why he still wrote, he said, "Because I'm still here, and while I'm here I want to feel it all. Because I'm still here, and while I'm here, I want to feel everything." This is what creative expression gives us, not just beauty but presence. This is the gift of creativity, not just beauty but presence. Not just art but a way back to our own hearts. And the beautiful thing is, not just paintings or poems, but a way back to our hearts. And the best part? It's never too late, not at 70, not at 80, not at 95. It's never too late. Not at 70. Not at 80. Not even at 95. Because as long as you are breathing, the song is still being written. Because as long as you can breathe, the song of your life is still being written. And your voice, no matter how quiet, still matters. What might be waiting in you? Your voice, no matter how soft, still matters. What might still be waiting inside you? To be shaped, sung, shared. The canvas is empty, the clay is soft. To be shaped? To be sung? To be shared? The canvas is empty, the clay is soft. And the moment is now to create not for praise but for the joy of becoming. And this moment, right now, is the time to create, not for praise but for the joy of becoming. We carry so much in our hearts, don't we? So many words we never said, so many regrets, old hurts that never healed. We whisper to ourselves, "It's too late. I should have known better. I can't make it right anymore." But Buddhist wisdom tells us something different. It says healing is always possible. But Buddhist wisdom gently reminds us, healing is always possible. Not because we can change the past, but because we can change our relationship to it. Not because we can rewrite the past, but because we can change how we hold it. We can meet our younger self with kindness and our older self with compassion. We can look at our younger self with kindness and our older self with deep compassion. In Buddhist practice, there is a meditation called loving kindness or metta. In Buddhism, there's a practice called loving kindness or metta. You begin by offering gentle wishes to yourself. May I be safe, may I be well. You start by sending warm, gentle wishes to yourself. May I be safe. May I be well. Because you did everything right, but because you are human and that is enough. Not because you were perfect, but because you are human. And being human is enough. And then you offer that same kindness to others, to those you love and those who hurt you. Then you send that same kindness to others, to those you love, and even to those who caused you pain. Not to excuse them, but to free yourself from the prison of resentment. Not to excuse their actions, but to free yourself from the heavy chains of resentment. Because forgiveness is not about saying it didn't matter, it's about saying I choose to matter now. Forgiveness doesn't mean it didn't matter. It means I matter right now, and I choose to move forward. You can place your hand on your heart and say to yourself, I forgive you. You can gently rest your hand over your heart and say, I forgive you. For not knowing, for trying and failing, for doing your best with what you had. I forgive you for not knowing better. For falling. For doing the best you could with what you had at the time. You can imagine yourself as a child, tender, wide-eyed, unsure. Picture yourself as a little child, soft, curious, and unsure. And wrap that child in love, not judgment, and hold them. Now wrap that child in pure love, not judgment. Hold them. Really hold them. Say, it's okay, I've got you now, I'm not letting go. Say, it's okay now. I've got you, and I'm not letting go. This is healing, not erasing the wound, but tending to it so it becomes a scar, not an open cut. This is what healing looks like. Not pretending the wound was never there, but caring for it so it becomes a scar, not a fresh cut. So it becomes part of your story, not the whole of it. So it becomes a part of your story, but not the whole thing. Buddhism says every moment is a chance to begin again and again and again. Buddhism teaches every moment, yes, even this one, is a chance to begin again. And again. And again. Until your life becomes a string of gentle restarts, each one filled with hope. Until your life becomes a series of soft new beginnings. Each one holding a little hope. You are not your mistakes, not your regrets, not your pain. You are not your mistakes, not your regrets, not even your pain. You are the one who is learning to sit with them, breathe with them, and soften. You are the one learning to sit with them, to breathe with them, to gently soften their edges. And in that softening you find freedom, not perfection, not forgetting, but peace. And in that softening, you find freedom, not perfection, not forgetting, but peace. You find that forgiveness is not a one-time event but a way of being. You discover that forgiveness isn't just one moment. It's a way of living, a way of choosing tenderness over toughness and presence over punishment, a way of choosing tenderness instead of toughness, presence instead of punishment. So if today your heart feels heavy, pause, put your hand to your chest and whisper. So if your heart feels heavy today, place your hand on your chest and whisper, I forgive you, I'm still learning, and that is enough. I forgive you, I'm still learning, and that is enough. And maybe, just maybe, that's where the real healing begins. And maybe, just maybe, this is where the healing truly begins. It gives us choice, and choice is freedom. Buddhist teachings call this mindfulness. It gives us choice, and choice is freedom. Buddhist teachings call this mindfulness. I stopped trying to intend peace, she told me. I just started living it, one moment, one breath at a time. This is the quiet strength of attention. It doesn't shout. It doesn't seek praise. But slowly, gently, it begins to reshape your inner life in ways intention alone never could. So ask yourself kindly, when your guard is down, where does your mind wander? When you're tired, distracted, or feeling alone, what thoughts do you fall back into? Start noticing, not with harshness but with care, where your attention keeps landing. And then, with the same gentleness, guide it back to what feeds your spirit. Because here's a deeper truth. The life you think you're chasing, it's already here, hidden beneath the clutter, beneath the noise. It doesn't wait for some perfect day in the future. It waits now, in this breath. It's here to be noticed, to be felt. And the bridge between where you are and the life you long to live, it's not just your dreams, not even your effort. It's your attention. So begin there, quietly, tenderly, with devotion. Let your intentions be carried not only by hope, but by the sacred direction of your gaze. You become what you quietly nourish. As we come to the close of this soft inward walk, let's pause, not to rush away, but to allow this wisdom to settle deep, like snow falling onto still earth. We started with something simple, yet powerful, that what you pay attention to is shaping your life, not through big, loud events, but in the quiet loops of thought, the feelings you sit with, and the unseen things you water day after day. We saw the mind as a garden, every thought a tiny seed, every moment of focus a drop of water. And we remembered, we are not our thoughts. We are the ones who choose what to tend. Though we may not stop the storms outside, we can rest within the calm center by learning to respond with peace, not react with pain. Letting go became a sacred release, not of something missing, but of burdens we don't need anymore. We came back to this moment, to what's still here, to what still holds beauty. We took back our energy, not by doing more, but by no longer feeding what drains us. And we understood something quiet but deep, that it's attention, not intention, that gently sculpts who we are becoming. And perhaps the most hopeful part of all, it's never too late to express, to live with joy without needing more, to realize that peace doesn't come by adding, but by choosing where your eyes and heart rest. So now, here is your soft invitation. When tomorrow comes, what will you water? Will you give your energy to fear or presence? To old regrets or deep gratitude? To the endless noise or the inner voice that still believes in something gentle and true? Because the mind will always wander. That's just what it does. But you, dear one, you have the power to guide it home. And home is not a place. It's a way of being, rooted in clarity, grounded in now. So let this be your quiet promise, to nourish what lifts you, to let go of what dims you, to love the life you have, not by fixing, but by truly seeing it. And now, if even one part of this message helped you remember who you really are beneath the noise, then I invite you to keep walking with us on this gentle path of remembering. Every video is crafted not to rush, but to return you to what heals, to what matters, to what is real. So let's keep going together, breath by breath, with eyes open and hearts soft. And always, always remember, you become what you quietly nourish. If these words touched something deep inside you, share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your journey. If you found peace or strength in these words, please like this video and share it with someone who might need it today. Your support helps us spread more light, more wisdom, and more compassion in a world that truly needs it. Until next time, stay mindful, stay strong, and never stop growing.